Hello, and welcome to The Frequency. I'm Nefarious.
And I'm Frequency Girl.
And today we are joined by the one and only Mike Barron, creator of The Badger, co-creator of Nexus, one of my favorite all-time comic book writers, here to tell us about his current crowdfunding campaign, The Thin Blue Line, only available on Indiegogo. Mike.
Hi, guys.
Show.
Gotta change hats.
I remember that book. That was just like 2 years ago, right? Florida Man.
Yeah, the novel was, the graphic novel came out last year. Next year, we're going to do the next one.
That was a hella fun book, by the way, man. Like it really felt like a return to the comedic stylings of the Badger comics.
Oh, thank you.
It's not every day that I get to talk to one of the guys who inspired my own foray into comic books. But I usually talk to artists. But you're a writer, so you use like words and stuff. Hopefully, we'll have a good, proper conversation. Before I get into the campaign, why don't we learn a little bit more about you? Preferably something that's not already on your Wikipedia page. Do you have anything to tell us about how you started off? Any interesting bits of Mike Barron trivia?
My first job out of college was smoking marijuana for the government.
Yeah.
I moved to Boston because I heard there were newspapers there that would hire anyone who could string two words together. And I responded to an ad in the classified section of the Boston Phoenix. Wanted volunteers to live on a hospital ward in Mattapan for 1 month, smoke marijuana every day, and take tests. It was just like college. And then when I got out, I wrote that up and I submitted it to the Boston Phoenix, and they ran with it, and then they hired me as an editor.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice. When about was this? Because I know in
1971.
1974 was when I think you got into comics. So you got your start, and just 3 years later, after entering like the world of professional writing, you started working in comics. How'd you make that transition? Going
well,
from
if I did, you're probably
comics.
referring to Tie Tack that I did with Larry Gonick.
Mm-hmm.
But I really didn't break into comics until 1981.
Right, which was when you wrote the first script for Nexus.
That's right.
Right. It was that was for Capital Comics, who also published Badger 1 through 4, which is quite possibly my favorite comic book series. I mean, you got X-Men and you've got all of the greats, the Image Comics stuff from Valiant, but man, like the Badger lives in my heart, and I'm sure you get that from a lot of people. But that book actually got me through a lot of shit growing up.
Well, I'm very excited about that, and I'm happy to hear it.
Oh yeah, I went to an all boys school. It was rough growing up. I was always treated as a weirdo outcast that people didn't understand, and I guess the Badger kind of resonated with me, being like the strange kid with an awkward sense of humor that nobody really understood. I didn't have a weather wizard to befriend me and and have wacky zany adventures with. So
we do have lots of friends in the chat.
Yeah,
we would be remiss if we did not say hello to them.
Let's say hi to some.
We
got
have
Mo Biggs. What's up, Mo?
We also, if I can scroll, I'm not even gonna attempt to say your name because I'm just gonna say it all sorts of wrong. But thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to say it either. I see him on Twitter all the time.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try it. We got Sim. We have Sim in the house. We have Frank Salazar popping in to
Frank
say
Salazar,
hi.
creator of Captain Courage.
Someone else too that
And
I can't find.
Yeah,
but thank you guys for popping in. And Mo said, sorry, he was texting Mike to ask if he had any formal
training in sequential.
Well, I asked one question, then I ask another.
That's a kind of an inside joke. It's one of the questions that I ask most of the artists on this show is if they have any formal training in sequential art. But you're a writer, so obviously you've got other training, and that was something that you cultivated on the job while smoking pot. So
Hi, Peter. Yeah, I tried to draw for years and years. I wanted to be an artist. And I got to the point where my art was recognizable. Nobody would ever call it professional. But for 15 years, I wrote my comics by drawing each page out by hand. And you could see everything. I mean, I draw each panel, each character, the landscapes, a rudimentary understanding of perspective, vehicles, spaceships. And artists and editors loved it, because they could tell at a glance what was going on. And the page also contained all the dialogue and the directions and the captions. And it was an invaluable experience for me because it taught me how much weight a page could bear. And it also taught me to think about what happens next, which is the essential question in all fiction. What happens next? And the reader has to care before he turns the page.
Right.
So I would look at that next panel and I would think, what's the logical extension of the story that's both entertaining and
compelling.
Compelling. Yeah. Thank you.
That you want to keep people turning the page, so you have to follow the flow of the story. It sounds like you kind of developed a understanding of storyboarding, or just doing thumbnailing for sequentials, just I guess spontaneously, which is fantastic. Did you read a lot of comics growing up to kind of synthesize that ability and use it as kind of like an example?
Yeah. Well, I would say that anybody who wants to understand the comic form should study the work of Carl Barks, who wrote Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck for Walt Disney. He was an absolute master storyteller and a very fine graphic artist. There's not a wasted panel in any of his work. His characterizations were brilliant. His humor was brilliant. His insight was brilliant. He could veer from tragedy to comedy in the same story and get away with it. And if you're not familiar with him, I say go look at those Uncle Scrooges. They're just brilliant. But then, I started to get into Marvel and DC, and I collected all the Masters of Kung Fu and Conan the Barbarian when Barry Smith was doing it, and Swamp Thing, and all those books that had tremendous art.
Those were highly influential, I'm sure, developing your own storytelling style. How did you start? Well, when did you start reading them, and what kind of comic books did you like to read, other than Donald Duck and Scrooge and the stuff that influenced you?
Well, like Master of Kung Fu, especially when Galassi started to morph before our eyes into this amazing creature. The stories were good. But even then, I recognized that there was no martial arts in the book, that was just a pose. And then any book with karate or martial arts in the title, it was all just a pose to take advantage of the Kung Fu craze. And that's one of the reasons that I have tried to inject very realistic and dynamic martial arts into my books. And I do that by showing a technique unfold over the space of several panels. And you'll see it in Thin Blue Line. So that it looks like a good Kung Fu movie. I was inspired by Bruce Lee.
You actually wrote a Bruce Lee miniseries.
Yes, I did.
Comic book miniseries. Yeah.
Vail Myerick illustrated that. Vail himself is a very accomplished martial artist.
Yeah, you studied also, didn't you? Real quick, let me say hi to Peter Palmiotti, obviously. Amanda B is up in the chat. We've got Noah, NTM Comics. D. Hausner, what's up, D?
Congratulations!
Yeah, congratulations,
on
my
wrapping
dude.
up Kid Nebula. It's just funded, and it was
Well,
awesome.
that's fantastic. We're super happy for you, my dude. Yeah. Be water, my friend.
I drink water, my friend.
So, are there any comic books on the stands that you're currently reading? Is there anything that's thrilling you these days in comic books?
Well, I don't read that many comics. I'm afraid to say I've become, every time I look back into them, I did buy 2 comics this year. One was a Captain America, and the other was a Master of Kung Fu. And neither one of them contained any entertainment value whatsoever. I was appalled. And now I'm sure there are some well-written comics out there, but I'm not the comic geek I used to be. To me, the excitement is in telling a good story. That's the greatest satisfaction I get from comics these days. Now, every now and then, I'll see a comic by a friend of mine that I really like, but most of those comics are being published outside the the usual channels. You know, I've pretty much given up on Marvel and DC. I did dip back in because I wanted to see if they were doing any worthwhile books, and I did buy those 2 books. There may be worthwhile books they're doing, but all I hear about are just these appalling lectures that people deliver disguised as comic book stories, trying to shame people and all this nonsense about pronouns. I saw this thing today was taken from a current Marvel comic about this woman weeping because her gynecologist called her the wrong pronouns. You know, I could dig that up for you if you like and send it to you while we're on this show.
I don't think I need to read it. I gotta recommend, and of course, you know, we're gonna have to take a shot saying it. The Daniel Warren Johnson limited run, the miniseries on Beta Ray Bill. It is nothing but fun. Excellent action, great art, a lot of heart too. It's about Beta Ray Bill stepping out of Thor's shadow, and
Good to know.
His hammer gets shattered, and that means he can't transform back into his human shape. So he takes on this quest to go down deep into the heart of Niflheim and reclaim Surtur's sword, because it has the power to, you know, be like a mythical weapon like that can transform him. And so it's great. He gets joined by Scourge, who is just, you know, he hates it in heaven because there's no guns. Like, you know, it's a fun comic. How do you turn that down? He's like, I hated it in Valhalla. There were no guns. I mean, like, you know, it's the fun kind of writing that I would have
might check that out.
hoped for. Yeah, you know,
I think they just released the collected like the trade of it.
Yeah, Sim says Beta Ray was very good. Hey, what is up, Darren Wagner? Bow.
Bow wow.
Mo earlier. Eric says, unfortunately, this climate has been cultivated since the 70s. We are just reaping what was sown in our school systems and entertainment for 40 years. Well, I mean, I grew up in the 80s, man, and I don't have a lot of these current cultural concerns that some people, you know, do, that's popularized in the media. So I don't know, maybe I guess a little bit later than that.
Sim said he just got the trade paperback yesterday.
Yeah, it's very good.
Mo says Phoenix sends his victims
to Niflheim. Nicely done, Mo. I don't think the world is ready for Jeet Kune Mo. I think you would break the formula again if you started teaching that. So I'm sure you get this from everyone, Mike. You bounced around the mainstream quite a bit. What was it like working for industry publishers back in the day? And do you anticipate that it's different these days?
I have no complaints. They treated me very well. Every time I went to New York City to visit Marvel or DC, they were kind. They took me out to see shows. We had a great time. I had virtually no editorial interference on anything I wrote, including The Punisher and The Flash. I can't remember anyone ever stepping in and saying, that's wrong, you got to change this. And of course, on Dead Man, we blazed a new trail there, because until then, Dead Man had never been considered a horror character.
Right.
And because we addressed it as a horror character, Kelly Jones found himself. And now you get the Kelly Jones that we know and love today.
Yeah, I mean, that's exciting, because not only was it something significant for a character, but it changed the entire title, right? What's up, Dragon Multimedia? Thanks for dropping in. So
did you also say hi to Eric?
I did say hi to Eric. What's up, Eric? You've written a whole lot across a whole lot of different genres. You know, like you said, you did Flash, you did Madman, you did Star Wars, you did a bunch of stuff, but it seems like you got a thing for vigilantes. For instance, you did that run on Batman, which was pretty memorable. Badger is technically a vigilante, although he's a little less brooding than Batman. And some people say that you did your best work or most memorable work writing the Punisher. Personally, I'll take Badger over Punisher any day, but it was, it was significant. It's a lot of issues that you wrote. Even your recent work, Bad Road Rising, has like elements of vigilantism in it. And that's one of kind of like the primary themes in the book. So,
well, those are novels. I should point out those are the Biker series. They're now called the Biker series. They're published by Wolfpack Press, and I finished the 9th Biker novel today. It's going to make your head explode.
Yes, Sim Nexus. I know, buddy. But we're not talking about Nexus. I was trying to like segue into talking about vigilantism because it is I guess a prevalent element of what it is we're going to be talking about today, which is the thin blue line. Are you just kind of drawn to that subject matter, or are you just particularly good at writing about vigilantes?
Well, thank you. I have to emphasize that Thin Blue Line is not about vigilantism at all. It's about police officers trying to do their job under very difficult conditions. I also have to stress that it is pure entertainment. People that are looking are afraid that it's a political diatribe. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's one of the best dramas I've ever written. There's not a wasted panel or word in it. It's going to grab you by the throat on the first panel and you won't be able to put it down. But as far as vigilantism, that's a different kettle of fish. It's far removed from what I'm doing in Thin Blue Line, but I love that theme. And after reading several Captain Americas over the years, I was disgusted by the direction they've put him in. And I have read some of Garth Ennis' Punisher, and he's very good. But I am returning to that in a new title that I'm working with. Gary Kissel is the artist on this, and don't start screaming for it because I just finished the script the other day, and it's going to be months before we know what we're going to do with it. But we're probably going to crowdfund it, and it's called Private America, and it's everything Captain America should be but isn't, and it's also the Punisher too.
Yeah. D. Hausner says he grew up in the 80s and the biggest fear was dying of dysentery. I remember milk carton kids. The whole like fear of being kidnapped and how that kind of like.
He was talking about Oregon Trail. I was gonna say I always got taken out by snake bites.
Okay.
But yes, there was like milk carton kids where like everyone was afraid that their children were gonna get.
It was like a big kidnapping paranoia kind of thing.
Yeah, we had like my parents would do drills in the kitchen like, "What's your secret password? If anyone comes to take you, what do you say?" Anyway. Keep going.
So you say that Thin Blue Line isn't some sort of political diatribe. Now I gotta say, okay, I'll suspend my disbelief for a second, but would I be off base to say the story, which uses the fiery but peaceful protests of 2020 as a backdrop, has more than a few elements of social commentary to it, simply by its very, I guess, unfolding? You're telling stories about a dramatic situation that these two cops find themselves in. Perhaps you're not making the subtext the text, which is a problem in modern comic books, but you are addressing these things.
Well, I've always ripped stories from the headlines, and anybody who reads Nexus or Punisher knows that.
Yeah.
And this story was obviously inspired by the events of the summer of 2020. 20 years ago, this story would not cause any outrage or backlash like I'm getting today. We submitted this to every major publisher, and many of the responses we got were obscene. The first time I heard some elected moron say defund the police, my reaction was, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Civilization can't exist without the rule of law. You're either for the rule of law or you're not. And now we're seeing the results, the fruits of these efforts from coast to coast. Downtown Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, Minneapolis, they're ghost towns. People are afraid to go down there. Every store is boarded up. They're letting rioters and looters run free. They passed a law in San Francisco that you can steal up to $950 worth of merchandise and there will be no charges. And now they're reaping what they sow. And we're seeing the results. And people are beginning to rethink their positions. And all these politicians who call for defunding the police are furiously backpedaling and denying that they meant what they said. But the videos are out there.
Have you seen the one about the shopkeeper who made everything in his store $950?
Yeah, I saw that.
And then he put coupons up by the register for like, $950 off or something. I thought that was very clever as a way to deal with it. But just to touch on that, I went back and started reading some Badger back issues before I got on the show with you. And it was Badger number 2 back, in the original Capital Comics run. Badger beats up some dude who tries to steal an old lady's purse. And then the cop shows up and goes to arrest him, and the old lady intervenes. And then like the crowd starts getting hostile that he's not going to get arrested. And he jumps up and he says, look, everybody, society falls apart if we don't have the rule of law. That guy was trying to steal a purse. He got the shit kicked out of him. That's fair. I kicked the shit out of him. The police are going to arrest me. That's also fair. And people said, yeah, but what gives you the right? And he goes, I'm the Badger. That's what I mean when I'm talking about vigilantism. We don't have this sense of people doing the right thing and being responsible for their actions. Personal responsibility doesn't seem like it's very popular these days. And anyone who kind of does fall in line with the idea of personal responsibility is generally disregarded as not being for the equality of the masses. Rather, saying, hey, well, you did something dumb, that's on you. Or if you burn shit down, you should go to jail.
That's called personal responsibility, and it's kryptonite. Yeah. It's kryptonite to a certain segment of society today. And most of that segment gets into politics. As I always say, most people have their hands full doing their job, taking care of their family, maybe kicking back on the weekend and watching a little football. But there's a certain class of person that spends every waking second scheming how to get power over others. And now that class of person has taken over this country.
So I know you said, and I'm gonna stick with it, that there are no political diatribes in this book, but is it a pro-police book in the sense
yes,
that
it is.
Police are the protagonists? This is from their perspective, and it's about the stuff that they go through having to deal with all of this. So
yeah, but it's not all black and white. There's shades of gray in there. However, it is supportive of the police.
As it should be. I think that in this, we don't have a lot of fiction that's doing that. They took cops off the air.
Police have been reaching out to me from all over the country, expressing their gratitude. And the reason I did this is because, first of all, it's a great story. Secondly, I know a number of police officers, and the ones I know are all civic-minded individuals who join the force to become a positive force in their community. They didn't do it for personal gain. They're living by the second rule of writing, which is show, don't tell. In other words, they go out and they try to do good. They try to help people. They don't broadcast their achievements. They don't issue press releases when they do.
They don't virtue signal?
Pardon?
They don't virtue signel? They don't go on Twitter and talk about how good they are?
That's not in the police character to virtue signal, because it attracts a certain type of person who's self-reliant and is steeped in public service. Like my artist, Joe Arnold. He was an Army Ranger, and I knew Joe before he joined the police force, and now he's been a full-time police officer for 3 years. And I know Joe, and he's a good guy, and he tries to help people. They adopted a child. And he's typical of many of the police officers I know. And of course, I acknowledge there are bad cops. We all know there are bad cops. I personally,
they're bad people. It's not like you're a cop, therefore you're not allowed to be fallible, or their institution of policing isn't, simply by its nature of existing, going to have people in it who make bad choices or are not good people.
Right. Some succumb to greed, corruption.
For people who think that. So why don't you give us the rundown? Who are the main characters in the story?
Oh, well, Valeria Baca is a young single mother. She was married before to a police officer, but they couldn't get along, so they divorced. That's not in the story. That's a backstory in my head. But we meet her as a single mother, and we meet her before she's a police officer. I mean, she's a cop when we meet her, but she's not on duty. And that's that first page where she's training for her brown belt. So we get to know her a little bit. And her partner, Bob Mack, is a good guy. He's a lifetime cop. But there are other police officers that are a little shady. They're a little sketchy in there. And you'll see what I mean when you read the book. So it's not black and white, but it's a tense situation because they're assigned to guard the mayor. There's been a shooting in town, and nobody knows any of the details. All they know is that a cop shot a guy and he died. And so
Goodness
these
gracious,
mobs start to gather in the center of the
ripped
city.
from the headlines. Like you said, it's almost like the real world where the news isn't reporting facts, or the facts are sketchy at best and people are running with one narrative or the other. I mean, like you said, it's ripped from the headlines. So what obstacle do they face here? They're guarding the mayor.
Yeah, and the mayor's trying to give an address, and the crowd just erupts because the crowd is not mostly curious people. It's various factions of mobs with axes to grind, and it just erupts, and the shit starts flying in, and bottles of urine and bricks. So they're forced to retreat to City Hall, but then the mob breaks into City Hall, and they take the mayor out through the basement garage in a car, and they're trying to get him to safety, and they have to run a gauntlet because these mobs have taken over the whole city, and they're setting up barricades in the middle of the street and burning garbage and stuff, and they're attacking the police station. And it's about how they survive the night and what they have to do to survive the night, and the people that they meet along the way, because they meet all sorts of people along the way.
So it's also a little bit like Assault on Precinct 13 then, where you've got
geez, I must have heard that a dozen times in the past week. And yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good film. I mean, so was End of Watch. I mean, there's a lot of
that's a great film too.
A lot of good, I mean, Training Day. There's a lot of good fiction out there about law enforcement, about police that isn't simple and one-sided. It's complex.
This paper you're showing right now is an example of what I mean by allowing a martial arts technique to unfold in stages.
Yeah. That's some of the art that I'm very familiar with from the Badger books. I mean, you even sometimes have the martial art actions mapped out in the panel, where you have kind of like his after image moving from where he was to where he is now, going through those motions. I love that from like old Spider-Man books and stuff like the older books, and it's it's all over your Badger books, and I always thought that was so cool. I would like emulate the patterns and act like a goofball. So
not much has changed.
Yeah, not much has changed. Exactly. Why don't we look at the trailer? Because I do want to touch on another thing after we take a look at this. As we all know, trailers don't sell comics, but they might tell us something about them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna load that up.
Beginning with issue number 1. Mike Baron wrote Marvel's The Punisher for over 5 years, approaching it as a straight crime comic, without any superheroes, aliens, or robots. Over the course of 60 issues, Baron elevated the gritty anti-hero into one of the most popular and enduring characters in the Marvel Comics universe. Now he brings that same ultra-realistic intensity to his latest graphic novel, Thin Blue Line. In the middle of a long, hot summer, a police shooting ignites a city. Activists, opportunists, and provocateurs descend to riot, loot, burn, and kill. Thin Blue Line follows Officer Valeria Baca and her partner as their detail guarding the mayor turns into a battle for survival. Ride along on this harrowing tale of 2 brave law enforcement officers fighting for their community and their own survival in a world gone mad. Eisner winner Mike Baron has created an alarming tale that unflinchingly examines human fallibility on every level. Along with penciler Joe Arnold, himself a full-time police officer, and talented inker Jeff Slemons, they've created a moving and entertaining story ripped straight from today's headlines. Thin Blue Line exposes the defund the police movement and its consequences for society, but several comic book companies have refused to publish it. Now we're asking you to join the effort to distribute it independently and help support the men and women of law enforcement. Get your copy of the only graphic novel to offer an unflinching and not always flattering look at the men and women of law enforcement during a time when we need them the most. Not all heroes wear capes. It's a thin blue line between the rule of law and a world of chaos. Which side are you on? Thin Blue Line by Mike Baron. Order now on Indiegogo.
That is great.
That is good.
First, we'd like to thank Amanda B for being backer 501.
Yay, thank you, Amanda B.
I guess doing the signal
frequency
boost,
wave,
the
she's
frequency
calling
wave,
it.
whatever it is. We're glad you're backing and supporting the book.
Thank you, Amanda.
Now, I can't help but tie these two things together. You wrote The Punisher for 5 years.
Yeah.
And your book, The Thin Blue Line, clearly has some resonance with Blue Lives Matter. Since it's pro-police, it's protect the police, and talking about how we need them to be held accountable, but also just need the institution in general to protect society. So back in 2013, the Black Lives Matter movement was launched to protest the systemic racism and violence that African Americans face in the United States. That's a direct quote from the website. It's not me saying that. Particularly at the hands of the police. The movement spotlighted police killings of African Americans, which in turn tied these protests to anti-police rhetoric and later spawned movements like Defund the Police. It's a reality in America that police in the past have brutalized people, African Americans specifically, but not everyone felt the BLM movement was moving in the right direction towards progress. A year later, in reaction to BLM, police groups decided to form Blue Lives Matter, a response movement, and a number of Blue Lives Matter groups incorporated the Punisher logo into the Blue Lives Matter posters, decals, and things of that nature. How do you feel about the idea of the Punisher and the Punisher logo being associated with or incorporated into the Blue Lives Matter movement and its support of the police? A lot of people have made a big deal about this, and I want to get your thoughts on the matter, seeing as how you wrote the guy.
I have no problem with it.
So,
by the way, it shows up in Thin Blue Line in the most surprising way. You'll see.
Really?
Marvel and Disney reacted to the social outcry about the Punisher logo being adopted by police departments and the Blue Lives Matter movement. And a bunch of comic professionals, including Matt Wilson, Mags Visaggio, Eric Palicki, and Kat Verhoeven, called on Marvel and Disney to enforce trademark restrictions against unapproved and unlicensed use of the Punisher logo by police. Now, big problem with that is that Marvel can't enforce trademarks on logos when they're not being used for financial benefit. But what do you think people like Mags and Kat and Matt would think about the writer of the Punisher writing a book like The Thin Blue Line, and what would you have to say in response to that reaction?
Well, I have no idea what they would say, and therefore I can't really have a reaction to an imaginary statement.
That's fair. Froggy says, I had to check, and well, I hadn't backed this yet. Backer 502 Frequency Wave.
Thank you, Frog.
Awesome. Thanks, Frog. All right, so let's look at the campaign for the tiers real quick. We know that the book is 56 pages. The print version is $25. Tell me about the Officer Assist bundle, the first thing we're looking at there.
Well, we're giving to a number of charities. I'd have to look at them, but there's one of them is similar to Tunnels to Towers in that they help the families of officers who've been killed in the line of duty. Another one is to support officers who want to train in jiu-jitsu by paying their fees so that they can learn to subdue people without harming themselves or others. And that's one of the good things about jiu-jitsu. And Joe, our artist, is a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and he's probably a master. And that's why these combat scenes are going to be so realistic. I've done a little jiu-jitsu myself. I can't pretend to be a master, but from what I've seen, it's a lot easier, unless you take it too far. It's a lot easier on a suspect than certain blows which you would practice in karate.
You're right. Rather than sudden strikes, they're more submission moves.
Right.
and,
You can take a
and
person
designed
down
to
without
take someone
hurting them. You
down.
can
Right.
subdue them without hurting them.
Nice.
So why these three? We did something similar in our campaign where we donated books to charity or donated financial compensation to charity. Why these three? Why the Officers Memorial Fund, the National Fallen Officers Foundation, and like you said, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? You told me why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but why the other two? Why the Memorial Fund?
Brazilian
and the Fallen Officers
Jiu-Jitsu mostly because of Joe, because he's been training in it for years and he's used it in the course of his duties. The others we arrived at by consensus. We asked a number of police officers who reached out to us, and Chris Brawley, who runs this campaign and put the video together, made the final decision after running it by us, and we're all in favor of it. A number of these police officers who've contacted us are artists in their own right, and we'll be featuring their art in the book. In fact, you just went past a picture by a police officer named Adam Miller. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's in there somewhere. And he's going to be among the police officers whose art we're featuring in the book.
Oh, that's really cool that you're
find it.
featuring cops art in the book. I like that. So there's original art on the campaign, but there's also this mugshot tier. Tell me about that.
Well, at a certain level, you get drawn into the book, and you have your choice. You can be in the crowd. You can be on the podium with the mayor. You can be on a post office wall. You can be somebody they meet on the way out of town. And your memorial, that's Adam Miller's art. He's a police officer.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That's really nice. I love that.
Yeah.
And some people love to do that. They love to be drawn into the book. And that was one of the features of our Florida Man graphic novel. And we're gearing up for another one next year that's even funnier. We'll probably offer that again.
No, I'm not zooming on her knees. I'm zooming in on the light coming across the back of her thigh and down her shin, and how the haze from the smoke is coiling its way around
it's gorgeous.
her shins there. I'm looking at the way that the light is playing off of her forearm and off of her fingers to the point where you can actually see the tendons.
Yeah. Right, but until you described that, everyone at home thought you were
Well, everyone at home was wrong.
No one thought that.
Everyone
she's probably right.
Only because they know Aaron.
Why are you looking at her knees? So why don't you tell us about the stretch goals that you're trying to unlock? Hopefully we'll unlock one of those today.
Well, we got to hit 25 before we use Sergio's cover. Right now, Butch Geiss's cover is going to be the standard cover with Joe and Jeff's painting the rear cover. 25, bigger book. The Sergio Cariello cover, I think you've passed by it, but it's stunning. The patch, the trading cards. At some point, we're going to offer a ride-along coin. I have a number of these. And you get them when you ride along with a police officer. They just give them to civilians as a token of their participation to build goodwill. A police officer reached out to me and he said, I can't tell you what this book means to me. My son goes to school and they pick on him mercilessly because his father is a police officer. They call him a Nazi and all this. And he says, I wish you lived in Colorado so we could do a ride along. So I wrote him back and I said, well, guess what? And he came up here with his family. I had him over for dinner, and his entire department pitched in to give me patches and ride-along coins and commemorative things and a flag signed by every member of the department. It was just wonderful. We're probably going to put that flag out on Flag Day.
That's baller, man.
That's a great story, too.
So bigger book goes to from what 56 to 64 pages. You're tossing in 8 more story pages. Are those story pages?
I don't know what we're going to do, but I could whip those up overnight. 8 pages is nothing for me.
Yeah, obviously, because you're Mike Barron. I did have that question earlier. How fast can you turn out a script?
If I'm inspired, I have written. I usually, if I'm really burning, I'll do 10 pages a day. Yeah. But that's because I know where I'm going. That's the most important thing is what happens next. And when I know what happens next, I just burn through it. But sometimes you have to go a little bit ahead and then look back and see that's Sergio's cover.
Yeah.
And see what you've done, where you've been to know where you're going next. I once wrote a 24-page script in one day, and those scripts that come out real fast are among my best scripts because I'm on fire and I know where I'm going. Usually scripts take a lot longer than that. I struggled with a script for Private America for weeks until suddenly I realized what I had to do. And then from then on, it was just a revelation. I was on fire and all cylinders were burning, and the stuff that happens in that is going to blow your mind.
Man,
You mentioned the use of the Punisher logo. Well, I can't say any more about that, but it does.
Oh, come on. You can give it. No one watches this show.
That's
you
not
can
true.
shut
It is
just
relevant.
means that
It is
everyone
relevant
needs
to Private
that.
America.
You just need to back the book.
Yeah.
So this way you can get it and find out what
Do me
the Easter egg
favor,
is.
zoom in on her knees for a minute so I can. Kidding. Yeah, I got to get faster, I guess, because he's talking about putting out 10 pages a day, and that's doable. It's just the getting.
Well, I don't just sit down and whip them out. I start making notes in a notepad long before I go to the script, and that's how every story starts. Is me writing longhand in a loose leaf binder. Anything and everything that pertains to the story, names, situations, ideas. And sometimes
has like 87 of them.
Yeah, I got these
have a problem.
goofy pads like this that I keep around all over the house.
I also got him special waterproof ones.
So I can take it outside because I've lost them in the rain before. He
just had them in his backpack when it's been pouring in New York City.
I would encourage you to carry a bigger notepad.
Yeah, something larger, a little bit more substantial. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, nice.
That's what I use.
But I can't put that in my pocket when I go for a walk in the woods.
That's why you got to carry a purse.
Okay.
That's what I call my backpack. It's I always carry a backpack. It's got all sorts of stuff in it. Survival gear, treats.
I like treats.
Okay. Like he usually depends on me for
I
have
treats.
Treats in my purse for him. It's like Mary Poppins, but not as fun. Yeah. So we'll get you a backpack.
Yeah, we should definitely do that. But he said like struggling for weeks. So like I struggled for freaking months.
Oh yeah, that's happened to me too. And that's why it's important to work on more than one project at a time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because you reset your mind,
parallel stories.
You reboot your mind, you get onto another project, and sometimes the answers you've been looking for just sneak up on you when you're not expecting them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that much is true because, like, we'll be eating dinner or watching a movie about something completely different or just having a regular conversation.
Just get up and walk out of
and
the
then
room.
he's just gone and he's, like, writing, or he'll start talking about something to do with his story that I'm like, okay, and we've left the conversation that we're having, which is totally fine. I get it. Like, I'm not mad at him, but it's that moment of, like, and we're no longer in the same conversation.
I could see how writing could be a very lonely life, trying to.
Well, I always joke that writers have been preparing for this pandemic their whole lives.
Yeah,
it's true.
Definitely.
Right? You live in your own
it did affect us a little bit, differently than it affected some of our friends. I'm used to being an isolationist. I live in the woods. It's
Where
just
do you live?
We live in Connecticut, deep in the woods, man.
Yes.
Like it's gorgeous. We live on acres and acres of land.
Ponds,
it's really it's really peaceful. You can hear the coyotes in the backyard.
Yeah, we heard them a little while ago.
Because the time zone changed.
Going, ow, ow, ow. I don't do a good coyote impression. Sorry.
I used to live in New York City, like New York City, Manhattan proper, and I had to move away from there. I just couldn't take it anymore after a certain point in my life. I don't know what changed, but I didn't feel like it was. I didn't feel like it was me that changed. I felt like it was the world around me that changed. I don't know if that's true. I'm not sure yet. I haven't really reflected on it. They're like, I feel like I'm the same person. It was everyone else that went crazy.
But now we live in the woods and we have coyotes and deer and frogs for neighbors.
Frogs.
And they're nice. We like frogs.
So why crowdfunding? You want to tell me why crowdfunding? I know that you said that it's because a number of the major industry publishers wouldn't pick this up and put it out. But this also looks like it's a graphic novel, not a mini series or, something that's designed to be in floppy format. Why go to crowdfunding with it? You're Mike Barron.
How
You can
else
just
are we
sell
gonna
it
get paid
directly.
for it? I don't do this for my health. I do this to make a living. And it's also, if there are a number of major publishing houses that put out graphic novels these days, but the editors at those houses are of a particular bent. And I would say that bent is similar to those of the major comic book industries. When we submitted this to all these publishers, many of the responses we got were obscene.
Yeah, you said that they were less than favorable. In fact, probably quite offended at the
Fuck
submission
you,
of this.
eat shit, get out of
Yeah.
here
Oh
with
my
your
God.
propaganda.
No, I
fuck the
I
police.
think I saw some of the tweets that were showcased.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
they were pretty awful.
Yeah.
This is why I don't like Twitter and I don't go on it myself. I make him do it.
Well, I mean, no,
Takes one for the
he
team.
released them on Twitter as the responses. They weren't like
We
issued on Twitter. These
redacted
were
the
formal
sources.
responses.
Goodness.
Thank you very much for submitting your story. Fuck you with your pro cop propaganda. ACAB hashtag Black Lives Matter.
Oh my God.
We live in a society,
That's
right? We live in a society.
I don't even have words
But
for
I was
it.
saying, like, why crowdfunding? More because you're Mike Barron. People know you. You do have a social media presence. People buy your stuff, and I know that like doing the printing yourself, like going to a printer, and then fulfilling it yourself is definitely some work. More, I should say, than I would imagine doing it through a publisher would be, because you're in charge of all of the fulfillment. And
Well,
everything.
naturally, I'd prefer for a major publisher to pick this material up and pay us industry rates. But I think that we're going to be getting more than industry rates when we're done, when it's all said and done.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about this particular project. And one of the reasons is that the projects that are really hitting the high numbers, and by that I mean 6 figures or more, and I have a number of friends whose projects regularly hit 6 figures. They're in established genres. They're fantasy, superhero, science fiction, or horror. And Thin Blue Line is a gritty, realistic drama with no fantastic elements. So the comic book crowd generally feels more comfortable with the genres they love. So all we could do is put it out there. But I guarantee you, once people read the book, they're going to go, holy shit, this is a great story. And they're probably going to want more. And I have no plans to carry on these characters. But if the demand becomes overwhelming, I would certainly consider it, because there's more to be said about these people, and certainly ends in a way that opens it up for future adventures. But in the meantime, I have a number of other projects in the works, none of which are as risible about this one as this one, except for Private America. But the other projects include Florida Man 2.
Yeah, I see that's coming. Yep.
Which is, it's just to make you laugh. And a Western I'm doing with Pat Broderick. It's the best work of his career. And that's going to blow your mind, too. We've shown some of the art, and people just can't believe it. Hang on, I'll post a piece in your Twitter feed.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah,
I'd love to.
that'd be
If
great.
you,
And I don't know,
you wanna
it's
bring
and
that up.
the problem with this is Pat's only got this crummy old camera, and that's what he takes pictures with the crummy old camera. And
He doesn't have the 4K telephoto,
no,
like
he doesn't even have a
no.
computer. There it is.
He's
It's
got
in
to
frequency.
take it,
It's-
develop it at the 1 hour photo, and send it to you in the mail, right?
Well, he sends me the pictures directly from his phone,
Okay.
and you can see what they look like.
Yeah, hold on. I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, it's here.
That second one might be reproduced better, just because of the quality of the photo.
Oh wow, I can tell. I mean, that's
Oh,
get on in there. Look at the
Yeah, I
line
wish you folks could see this.
Well, we just shared it, so I think they can see it. Should be up on the
Look
screen.
at that. Yeah. That's really
We're probably
nice.
going to do an artist-proof edition, oversized in pure black and white, like graffiti does.
Yeah,
Oh, that'll be
look at the
gorgeous.
texturing on the rocks.
Uh,
Look at the
Peter
texturing on
mentioned
the cliffs. The way he does this. I'm sorry, I'm goobing out over this.
This is
Show
really
the
good.
other one I posted.
Yeah, hold on.
I mean, okay.
Oh,
You have to take that
Yeah.
off.
Smokes the Fox. Yes, Peter. I'm excited about Smokes the Fox. Smokes is a dope smoking fox who escapes from a government facility and wreaks havoc.
So that's an autobiography.
Here we go. This is the other page.
Yeah, that's the other page.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good.
You can like just the grain in the walls. This reminds me of some Cryptid line work, like the texturing here. Maybe even Bullet Maker. This is great. I love the way that the door kind of hangs slightly bowed on the frame. The texture on the wolf.
There's so much good detail.
Yeah,
in
there
this.
is. Just the care that he gives to the tree. Too.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of detailed backgrounds.
The background just keeps going.
Yeah.
He could have cheated that. He could have cheated that real easily and just not given not given a lot of attention to what's going on back behind that door. But it looks like they were really noodling away and enjoying the thing that they were writing. I like the little tiny bit of intensity with his elbow poking out of the panel. That's class, man. It's a classy
always
piece.
Loved Pat's work. Always wanted to ink his work one day.
One day. I mean, if original pages are available, are you going to crowdfund that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, Pete, if original pages are available, right?
I think they will be.
Then fantastic. Probably.
And I have to point out that Pat's already completely penciled and inked 25 pages.
Wow.
Holy crap.
That's awesome.
That is fantastic.
That's great.
Smokes the Fox. Weaponized werewolf. Oh, I remember this. Yeah, Smokes the Fox, weaponized werewolf. Yeah. We got that message earlier today.
These are Justin Belmont's ideas that he asked me to write.
So is Justin producing the campaign? Yeah, we're having him on to talk about Smokes the Fox.
I'm like, why do I?
Because we got this message earlier today. Yeah.
Have Justin on. He's a real wire.
Oh yeah, we're going to. This has been a lot of fun, man. Do you have any words of wisdom for first-time creators who are trying to get their feet wet writing comics or crowdfunding?
Well, I have a couple of things to say, and one is that if you want to break into comics, there's no better way to do it than to produce your own comic and hand it to an editor at a convention, because they'll read it if it looks halfway professional. But there's the rub. The comics are a visual medium, and if you hand them a comic that looks amateurish or crude, they're not going to read it. So if you're not an accomplished artist yourself, you should do what I do, which is to hook up with an accomplished artist. And one way you can do it is say, listen, if you throw in with me, we will own the character jointly. And you only get one chance to make a first impression. So be confident of your craft. A lot of people, they write stuff and they say, oh, I don't know if it's any good. I'm afraid to hand it to anybody. You got to be confident. I don't have that problem. When I write stuff these days, I know it's good. I won't let it out of the house if it's got a problem. I'll keep it, and I won't let it out of the house unless it's a home run. And sometimes I'll work on a story for years before I get it right. But the best stories come real fast and furious. So that's my advice, is if you're going to do a comic, team up with an artist if you're a writer. And my other piece of advice is to do what I did, which is to start out by drawing your own comic yourself, even if you can't draw at all. Divide your page up into panels and put everything you want in each panel, along with all the words that accompany it. And that way you have a rough evidence, a rough proof of what you're going to do, kind of a roadmap, so to speak. And you can judge for yourself whether it's any good. I always say that every would-be writer has a million words of bullshit.
Mo, stop texting Mike Barron.
Hang on a second. And Chris is here. Baby, I'm on a podcast. I can't do that. Where were we?
You were saying that you should divide your page up into panels and then put things in so that you have a basic proof of concept.
Oh, great. Chris is here. Now the dogs are going crazy.
I have one more question for you. I've always wanted to ask this. What does Ufda mean?
Oh, it's an old Norwegian expression that's similar to wow or yeah.
Okay. So whenever he jumps up or does a kick to someone's face and he goes Ufda, he's saying wow. That's awesome.
It's just an exclamation.
I like it, man. I like that. I've always wondered though. All right, man. We've had a lot of fun tonight. I don't want to keep you any longer. I mean, Chris is here. Do you want to tell people
Chris
where to find
here.
you?
I'm at Bloody Red Baron on Twitter. On Facebook, go to the Comics and Novels of Mike Baron. I also have a Mike Baron author page. I'm on Substack, mikebaron.substack.com. We're in the midst of revamping my website, which is bloodyredbaron.com. Thank you, Frog. My wife Ann is revamping it. It's going to be all new, all great. It might still be up there for all I know, but it's undergoing some heavy changes. And that's about it.
All right, man. Well, we really appreciate you dropping by, hanging out with us for a while, talking about the book. I backed it second or third day.
You got a few
Thank you,
back
sir.
shape to 491 backers, $23,311. Very nice.
We'll see if we can get you up to that stretch goal. I would like a bigger book.
Peter Pony
When
says,
I
and that's
hit
it.
30,000, I dye my hair green.
30,000 and you dye your hair green.
All right, we're
40
gonna have to push
mohawk.
for that.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how much hair you have to dye green, Mike. So, all right, there's a substantial amount that could be
That's-
greened up. Yeah,
Very nice.
It
Okay,
could-
so now we have some.
and we could get Death Metal Hero to help him,
with the
style it
mohawk.
up
Yes,
to a
that's true.
hawk.
He's
All right, let's work on that, guys. Let's see if we can get the word out about Thin Blue Line. I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be the type of book that we need to read right now, especially since it's not, like you said, black and white or one-sided. That's going to be it for us tonight, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out, hanging out with us in the chat, tuning into the show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications.
and tune into the frequency.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey,
Thank
Jason.
you very much.